Welcome to our first episode of the You Had Me at Halo spin-off podcast, Book Club. In this series, hopefully one of many, we'll go through the various books, shows, anime, TV shows, comics, who knows, the Halo universe is huge, and we'll go piece by piece and give a short review or a short impressions on the series, as well as hopefully how it relates to the overall Halo picture. In today's episode, for the inaugural episode, we're going to start off with Halo Shadows of Reach. Now, this novel was supposed to have released back on October 20th, and it was supposed to have come out right before Halo Infinite, so there are quite a few ties. Now, joining us today are two members of the usual You Had Me at Halo team. First off is Daniel.
Hello.
And second off, and he'll be kicking us off, is Jesse.
What's going on?
So, Jesse, I understand you have a your own take on of a synopsis of this book.
I do. I just broke down what I felt were the biggest, most important parts of it. It is a Master Chief story. There have been 3 of them so far. I haven't read the first 2 because I didn't know they existed.
Yeah,
I somehow missed them.
Honestly, all these books after 2015, I'm kind of in the dark about for the most part.
Yeah, when we were going through this, I was like, holy shit, there's like 3 or 4 books that I've missed.
Yeah.
I know. And then they just put out another one, which is like, essentially you need to have read 4 books before it, so we're not going to cover it right away. And then they announced another one, which is the sequel to this book that we're doing. So we'll definitely have to hit that one.
They're not slowing down at all.
No, they've got a lot, and this book was okay. I think I'll just start with that as the synopsis.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It was disappointing in that sense, where I really wanted it to have parallels with Fall of Reach. I mean, the name, the cover is clearly an homage to it, right? While the book itself just kind of didn't. But we'll get to that.
So the story begins with Master Chief, aka John 117, and Blue Team, back from Halo 5. They're aboard the UNSC Special Delivery, which is an Owl Stealthcraft. They are heading back to reach the former heart of the UNSC military that had been attacked 7 years prior. It's really weird when you think about how short the time frame of every Halo game is, essentially.
Yeah.
So they are there to do a insertion back into Castle Base from Reach for a MacGuffin. Even by the end of the book, you don't know what it is. But it's called a potential war-altering asset.
You know, that was disappointing, not actually telling us what the entire book is building up towards.
All this for a restoration point is essentially what we're getting.
Yeah.
It's like, I get it, because I always wonder, one of the problems they had with the Forerunner trilogy, it was really good, a bit dry, but really good backstory for everything.
Right.
But they didn't give you most of that in the actual game. So when they're doing these things that are like connective tissue between 5 and Infinite, they hesitate on actually putting too much. Because they have to be able to spell it all out in the game proper.
Yeah,
right.
So, fair. I'll give you that.
I get why I wanted to know what it was. I also get why they might hold off on saying what it was.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely speculate, which we will.
I have a few theories.
Yeah.
With them, they've got some regular humans who are there to work the excavating equipment because Castle Base got blown the hell up in Reach. And there's Stella Mukai, Esnik Van Hout, and Mark Chapov. They've all got, I mean, they're all right. It's very military jargon heavy, I felt.
It felt like an author making their own characters and wanting them to stick out. But they kind of just annoyed me more than anything else, especially in the beginning.
Well, yeah, and they were, you have to have the rookie, the one who, who
hotshot, who's incredible.
Exactly, the outspoken one who has to learn a lesson in the plot.
It's a trope-filled, rather predictable story overall,
and they're pretty cardboard cut out.
The characters themselves are pretty forgettable.
Yeah,
I would say his characters aren't the best. I could always feel like I knew what was happening, action-wise, which some of them have had a problem with before.
Oh, yeah.
So that part I liked. Like, I always felt like I knew, these ships are over here, these are over here, they're here. That part worked pretty well.
I feel like any kind of sci-fi action is very tough to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I love Greg Bear. His books were amazing, but I had to reread the series twice to really get an idea what the hell is happening at some times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His character exposition also wasn't the best.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely get to that.
Yeah. So immediately everything goes bad because you got to have some sort of conflict. The planet has been invaded by the Banished, who were made in Halo Wars 2 and have been shown to be the main enemy we know about for now in Halo Infinite. If you ever listen to the main podcast, we've theorized that it'll be Banished and Cortana's created sort of working together. There are parts in this story that make that seem like it's a possibility. Some of their stuff that they're doing with the Forerunner tech that was on the Ark. Play Halo Wars 2 or watch a video of someone doing the story if you don't like RTSs, because the Banished are cool and they're going to be a big part of these books and the game.
And The Awakening. Make sure you play that too.
That's like, how good was that?
It was
so freaking
amazing. It was so freaking good. I went through it again just recently, just as I was reading this, just to kind of get, because Atriox definitely alludes to some of when he talks about the thousands of Banished still back there. I mean, he leaves it vague for a reason. So
yeah,
I mean, in a sense, this book was almost like directly continuing off of where Awakening ends.
Yeah, because Awakening is literally the thing. Well, we'll get there.
So I still do need to. I need to play it. Actually, I need to play both the Halo Wars games. It's just
it never goes on sale. Unfortunately, I got it. It was like $5 off, and I got it one time.
I'll buy the DLC the moment I finish the main game. I just haven't. I've gone through the story, of course.
DLC is better than the main. The main game is good. If you got to give it a score, it's an 8. The DLC is like a 9. It really raises the bar on it.
Yep. Agreed.
So going back to it, there are multiple skirmished with the flying Banished vehicles that's described in loving detail.
Yeah,
he loves his military jargon and his tactics, and it's good in the sense that you have an idea of what's going on where. It can be a little much sometimes with the detail, but I'll take it over not knowing what's happening.
I was like, can I make a point on that? If I have to hear about another hemp missile or any of the other spunker or spanker, we get it. We know what they are. But it's just like the repeat. It was like reading Ayn Rand and hearing about another angular, sharp nose. It was like if I had to read that one more damn time. But yeah, continue.
At not too long in, the perspective then changes to the Keepers of One Freedom. They are a brute cult that is focused on the Great Journey still, aka firing all the Halo rings and dying like a bunch of morons.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm surprised there's still like a Covenant faction that still wants to do this.
Well, I think it's like they were definitely the zealous religious cult who know what it is, but still think it's going to be something bigger than just getting blown apart.
Right.
So.
I mean, think about how many factions in the world we have where, something has been proven to be false, and yet they're still following a certain.
Fair.
The Hellbach comet got a bunch of people to kill themselves. It's always out there.
Yeah, and you're right. And I mean, technically, you could argue that it's unrealistic for a faction that has billions of people to be following the same thing. Anyways, there obviously have to be splinter groups.
Yeah, they do that quite often in these things because it just makes it easier to follow.
Yeah.
And then as you build it and get into the side stuff, you can get into not everyone's the exact same.
Right.
So they are hot on the trail of the Spartan team, and they're trying to figure out why they have come back to Reach after all these years. We learn that there are 2 other brute factions on the moon as well working for the Banished. They are the Legion of the Corpse Moon and the Ravaged Tusks, and both are working under Escharum, the war chief who was shown in the gameplay demo with his "put a fire in your heart."
That was pretty good. Damn.
I can do a line or two, and then I'm about to die. You know that voice actor is the one who does Reinhardt in Overwatch.
Oh, nice.
He's not even a big guy, too. He's got a big voice.
I listened to the audiobook for this book, and for the life of me, I almost dropped it multiple times because I just could not do Chief's voice. How he did it. It didn't make any sense. It didn't fit at all. But his Escharum was pretty good. I gotta admit.
That's the beauty of reading it. I mean, say what you will about Halo 5's story. One of the great things was getting some of those amazing voice actors to do Fred and Linda and Kelly, and obviously we know what Chief sounds like, but I don't know. One of the best things about when you have a great voice actor is that you don't have to imagine what they sound like anymore. So it takes away that.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons why I should have just switched to reading it. So it turns out though that listening to it at 2.1 made a big difference. When I brought it back down to like 1.2, I'm like, oh, this doesn't sound that bad.
Yeah, we've gone over it in the main podcast quite a bit, but you go back to the old Halos and the voice acting back then, it wasn't nearly as good as it got in 4 and 5. Now the writing could be better. I thought 4's writing was very good, and 5 was obviously just chopped up.
Mishmash, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they had ideas, they had this big thing, they ran out of time, and they just had to throw it together.
It was like Ridley Scott theatrical cut.
Yeah, no, especially ODST. Oh my god, I don't know how people. Ugh.
Yeah, friggin', and those were named actors.
Yeah, that's the weird.
Like Adam Baldwin, who's a crappy guy. His friggin' Dutch is one of my least favorite voice characters.
Yeah.
Oh god. All right. Well,
back to the synopsis. Yeah.
There are going to be many asides
100%.
as we go through. Through a series of close call skirmishes, the Spartans eventually meet up with a band of locals who have been fighting against the banished occupation for months. They are the Vieri militia and are made up of the people who lived on Reach before it became a major military hub. Their initial hopes are that the Spartans arrive to help them fight the banished, but those are quickly dashed when they learn the UNSC had no idea that they were even there. Cortana from Evil Cortana, who my guess is still that she's going to be called the Harbinger. The Differentiator is still running the galaxy with her Guardians, so most long-range communication has been cut off in fear of rousing her interest. And after a series of back and forths, the Spartan decide the only way forward is together.
That was surprising. No, not really.
So they all team up and use that excavation equipment to bore their way underneath a banished base called New Mohawks. Things start well, but are quickly turning for the worse. Characters we've known for a whole few chapters die, and it's very sad.
Wait. Were you not just torn apart by the rally racer that just...
Yeah. One was a famous Warthog driver, for out loud. That was my next line. She was famous. You didn't know her?
Admittingly, though, I did kind of like that because it opens up certain aspects of the Halo universe you just never think about, like entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, it's the focus on...
I don't mind the backstory.
Yeah.
But
and
like adding flavor and stuff is good. I just multiple times in this, it felt like it was only added because you knew they were going to die, and then every time they did.
Right.
Exactly. You want to kill a character off, you need to... I mean, I don't blame the author because it's just really hard to... Especially in like a book that's pre-established and you already have these characters that people already love, right? It's really hard to get people to care about your new characters, which as an author, you're definitely attached to more, right? These are your characters. You made them. And
we never know if like there's a sequel coming, but we don't know if he knew that ahead of time. So you can't plan out, longer story arcs.
Though admittingly, if some authors can pull it off, like my favorite Halo character is still Kurt to this day, from Ghosts of Onyx. Yeah,
Kurt and Sam.
Yeah. That's how you do a character death. You know, that messed me up for years, man. I read that book way too young. I think I was like 8 when I read Fall of Reach for the first time.
So I was 19 when Halo came out, so I couldn't read anything when I was younger. And it messed me up. I was already just an emotionally crushed teenager by then.
Oh man.
Get out of high school, so
there was a whole backstory about how the militia had a nuke and they were going to blow up the base with it, and the UNSC didn't want that because that would rouse Cortana and the Guardians and make them show up. So eventually, thankfully, they were able to not have to use that because Christ, I don't even... Do you guys remember why the Spartans knew to come in? Was it they had sent a message and hadn't heard back
Chief
yet?
had sent a message. He was like, if you guys don't come in, they're going to fire nukes, Cortana's going to show up, our entire thing's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
when
they
Palmer
didn't know
came
if they were coming. Yeah, they had said, please stop these morons from getting Cortana to come in here.
Yeah.
And everyone's fan favorite, the absolute best, Sarah Palmer leads them into action.
Oh man.
Hey, Jennifer Hale does her voice acting, so she's one of the best.
She's well
actors,
voice
so,
acted. It's
so
just
I
the
could
character
never
itself.
take those. Yeah, I could
Jennifer
never.
Hill is who again?
Palmer.
No. I know it's Palmer. I mean, as a voice actress.
Everything.
God. Yeah.
Just look up Jennifer Hale and
Mass
IMDb.
Effect.
Oh, Femme Shep.
Seven
Okay.
other
Yeah.
things.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Female Shepherd in Mass Effect.
Yeah.
MGS. You're solid. She's in everything. Tales of Symphonia, I think. I mean,
You can just stop at Tales of. I haven't played really any.
Okay, well, you can look
Ash
at
in
any
Overwatch?
game from the past. Yeah, Ash Overwatch. Like you look at any game from the past like 2 decades, and she's almost guaranteed to be in it. She's incredible.
And she's always good.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's like Troy Baker if Troy Baker was better. I'm just kidding. Troy Baker's actually very
Can we take a tangent and talk about how, for game reasons, because of game and for how to say brand reasons, the Master Chief cannot be promoted past Master Chief? That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Oh, it always just frustrates me when that comes up.
Wasn't it like he didn't want to ever not be enlisted, and that's the highest enlisted rank or something like that?
I'm sure there was something, but I mean,
Yeah, I'm
come
pretty
on.
sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, so my family's Air Force, so Master Chief, highest enlisted rank, and then you go to officer, which he'd have to go to school for and all that kind of stuff. If we're gonna
He
play
always
by
wants
the
to
rules,
be out on the field. He never wants to not.
Right.
It makes sense.
Okay,
logically,
you know what? That
even-
makes sense. And I
Yeah,
remember
it's not
hearing
too
this
bad.
before. You're right. I just kind of forgot about this. It's just really frustrating when you have someone who's had like 35 years of fighting this enemy get like, no, you're not. We're not going to follow your decision because I'm 22 years old and I have 3 years of experience
I'm a
doing
lieutenant.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or you get an old man who with an overactor who says, "Hand me that AI."
Yeah.
Man. That makes sense though. Okay, never mind. I rescind my complaint.
Yeah, so they send in all the Spartans, and the base is secure. Blue team gets themselves a Pelican and an escort to finally make their way to Castle Base. We jump back to the perspective of the Brutes and see Escharum arrive himself and start berating them over not finding the portal.
Yeah. That was actually surprising. I didn't expect to see Escharum show up in person.
I kind of did because he's been what they've shown, and I think he will be what we go after in Infinite and
for
not
sure.
Atriox. Because, or if we do see Atriox, it'd be
It's
later
later.
in the 10-year plan.
Yeah, Infinite feels to me like a new WoW expansion in the sense where you never go against after the big bad in the first patch. It's usually like patch like 3, X.3, where you finally take on the big bad of the expansion.
Right. They want to avoid the Destiny problem where they introduce the big bad and you've defeated the big bad within 3 campaign missions. So,
Yep.
I'm hoping that the Keepers come into play in some level. On
Keepers of the Light?
The Keepers of the One Arc. Remind me what their name, the full title is.
Go back up.
Keepers of the One Freedom.
One Freedom, yeah.
Mhm.
So many
Well,
tribes.
with him getting a sequel, they might.
Yeah, definitely. Because if they didn't get a sequel, you just kind of assume they just die off over there. But the fact that they are means, we'll see something.
taken over by blood.
Without spoiling the end of the Halo Wars 2 Awakening the Nightmare campaign, Awakening the Nightmare was literally marketed as Awakening the Flood on the Ark.
Yep.
So, like, it's not a spoiler that the Flood's there. That was like they're the goddamn screenshot that they show. But
And it's been
they're
several
going to
years.
the Ark. Yeah, they're going to the Ark years or like a year or two after. Is actually Halo Wars 2 set after Halo 5?
Awakening is. I'm certain. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
there's a few months between the end of the campaign and Awakening.
Yeah, so it's been a decent amount of time, and the Flood's back. So just on the Ark, which is very far away from everything else. But you wonder, now that Atriox is back, how did he get back?
Yeah, no. There's so many threads open to the Flood returning.
I have a theory.
Well,
He makes a deal with a Gravemind.
Well, see, that's what I kept wondering. What if the Gravemind was the Harbinger
the
and
Primordial?
not
Mhm.
Cortana?
Well, the Primordial So the Primordial is a character from the
Forerunner trilogy.
Forerunner trilogy, who was the precursor to the Jesus Christ, Forerunners. So he was the guy before the guys before or at the same time as humanity.
Right.
So he was the one that was left. They had created the flood to attack the Forerunners, and he dies during that because obviously he's never been a part of anything else. So, and it was 100,000 years ago. So it's not a shocker.
Man, I'm not sold that he's completely gone.
I know.
You know,
But we're also going to the ring where he's supposedly,
right.
So,
exactly.
So I think there might be more intelligence and more to what's going on with the flood and having them work with the Banished, possibly.
Yeah.
Just theories.
Yeah.
Yep. Rule 1 of movies and TV is if you don't see a body, it doesn't happen.
100%. Which is why, spoiler alert, actually, no, that's completely off topic. Never mind. Completely off topic. Like, what?
So going back to it, they can't find the portal, which is seemed like something Dalter Halsey had that no one else knew about. Her and her surprises that we never understand. When they are spotted approaching by Escharum, he sends ships to down them, and this ends with Blue Team once again being shot down and Chapov being mortally wounded. He is left to behind.
In case you forgot, Chapov was one of their members of their team. I forgot, so I don't fault you guys if you guys forget.
Yeah, right. He was the hotshot rookie pilot, right?
Right.
Yeah. They leave him to die horribly, but he does manage to take out a few Banshees with a rocket launcher first. So, hooray!
Yeah, and one of the cringiest lines was something like, we underestimated him even after we stopped underestimating him.
Man.
And it was just like, oh, come on, man. Like, that's just... Yeah. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, he dies in a fiery explosion, probably really painful, not immediate at all. They do eventually succeed in taking out all the hostiles in the area, save for a few who make it into the gigantic mine shaft that the Banished had created to try and reach the portal. And after some fancy vertical fighting, which was actually pretty cool, they're able to murder many of their enemies and reach the base. And during this, they get split up for a bit. Kelly is able to enter the lab and retrieve 3 cryobins.
Kelly and John.
A lockbox. Yeah, they both get in there. They get the 3 cryobins and a lockbox with the sword base logo on them.
Yeah.
Fred is sneaking and peeking down the cave when he runs into a human who was an Oni operative named Veta Lopez.
Right.
That's a stupid name. Who had gone missing. She and her team of Spartan 3s had infiltrated the Keepers of One Freedom.
And I believe Veta was from a previous book as well.
Right.
I was going through the synopsis. I kind of figured her and Fred had some history that was clearly in the novels or something. But she's one of the previous novels that I think Troy Denning wrote, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
Yeah, most likely. Whenever they bring someone back, it's normally from their own stuff. She informs Fred that the UNSC, to let the UNSC know that Atriox has returned to the galaxy.
Which...
Who?
Yeah.
Well, if you've played Halo Wars 2, you might know.
That's
he's really cool in it.
Of every Halo player. Who?
Yeah, I mean, he beats up a bunch of Spartan 2s that no one had ever heard of before.
That was
the problem that I had with that point was like there's so much. There are already so many signs to that end. It's like, did they really need to send that whole sequence with the message capsule being dropped down down to Fred and all that kind of stuff? It's just there's a little bit too much redundancy in this book that I'm just not used to in most of the Halo books. Yeah, just a little bit.
It was cool seeing Atriox though. I did think that was cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm fine with that. It's just the whole exchange between Lopez and Fred. I feel like I even put it in my notes. I felt like it was just so ham-fisted to bring in a character from a previous book that's probably going to be brought back in the next book or the next book after that.
She's on the cover of the next one, right?
Yeah, she's in the sequel for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, point made.
They had mentioned that there was a group of humans around Castor.
Yeah.
Christ, I didn't even mention Castor.
But yeah.
Yeah,
because that's why Atriox was so pissed when he came in, because he had humans on his ship, and he's obviously super racist.
So I don't know if I had mentioned before, the brute who we get the perspective of his name, Castor, from the Keepers of One Freedom. And she has become a part of like his inner circle. Her and her Spartan threes are infiltrated that way. So after speaking with Fred and saying Atriox is back and having most of the Hail fandom go, who? She then slinks back to her big monkey friends. All the various factions of the Banished meet up at the portal, witnessing Atriox return from the Ark. And I wrote, Halo Wars 2 is good right after this. There is some political intrigue as the Keepers want to go to the Ark instead of working for the Banished, as they considered it massively important to their religion. Atriox orders them killed, but the elite named Gadagai, who had been tailing with Castor, ends up letting the brute protagonist go because he is convinced by him to join the Keepers. And he's on the cover of the next book too. Gadagai, Castor. Yeah. Who is the robot? Do we know?
In the back?
Yeah, so you've got Human Lady from Oni, Castor, Gadagai, and then a really cool-looking Promethean robot that looks similar to what Spark looks like now in the novels.
Probably.
Yeah, I thought it was Spark, but I wasn't sure if that was what they were alluding to.
And they haven't said anything about what it exactly is yet. And with Halo Wars started with, there's a character named Forge who sacrifices himself at the end of the first story. And the books that Spark is a part of now star his daughter, Ryan Forge. So it kind of makes sense because the new book that just came out is Ryan Forge and Spark.
Forge was the soldier, right? The commander? Not the commander, sorry. The captain, or I don't even know what his rank was.
Yeah, I think it was he was a guy under. He was
not Cutter.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Nolan North, I believe, did his voice actor.
That is very believable.
Yeah, and they wrote a series of books with his daughter that have been pretty good. Yeah. I've actually liked them quite a bit. So Guilty Spark is alive, if you've never read the Forerunner trilogy. And now he's just known as, he had a whole backstory. He's known as Spark now. And that might be him on the cover, though I'm sure someone will comment and say, no, you morons, it's not.
It's probably not. It's probably someone new.
It looks a lot like he did from my memory, but I bet you I'll look at both covers now and say, oh, yeah, no.
Also, cover art is always, it's not the most reliable thing.
So, to finish things off, after they all meet up, he wants to kill him. Guy doesn't. It's it's an ass subplot, but I guess it's a potential setup for another book on the Ark.
Yeah, you call that one.
I wrote this well before that book was announced. The book ends with Blue Team delivering their cryobins and lockbox to Dr. Halsey aboard the Infinity, and then a mad scramble to get the hell out of there because a Guardian is on its way due to the large amount of fighting that took place on the planet. Reach is saved, but now will immediately just fall into the hands of that crazy created Cortana and her Guardians.
Yeah.
The end? Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
I feel like one of the things I was thinking, a constant thing that I had when I was reading this was that I feel like he was a better author for dialogue between the brutes and Gadagai. I mean, the political intrigue on that level from having Eshrom's right-hand man there the whole time, reporting everything back to him from Castor's group, but then while at the same time being entrenched so much that it's kind of like an anthropologist who is there to study a culture, but then gets so ingrained that their own perspective is skewed by what we call the emic perspective. So it's like it was so, I don't know, there were a lot of things I didn't like about this book, but the payoff for me from seeing Gadagai's switch over to the Keepers, I just thought was so awesome. I mean, that moment where he extends his hand out in the Thing Haley, motion of friendship, and which is typically a much guarded type of thing, was and well kept within their people was pretty cool. And it was nice to see that. For me, it was nice to see that they're setting up a clear, just like you had with Arbiter in Halo 2, they're setting up a clear indication that there are still splinters within, even the Banished and the tribes of the Banished, that they're not this black and white, bland, everybody follows the rule of, their leader every single time. I mean, they're just like you saw when the three tribe chieftains met. You had the three Dokabs almost start a whole group ending fight on top of that glass dome.
Yeah.
Now you always get the sense that it's on a razor's edge of actually falling apart.
The tension was really well done there, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I would not have been surprised if Castor was killed at the ending. I'm like, is this gonna happen? Like, this is pretty tense right now,
Yeah.
Because like a big part of Halo Wars 2's story was building up. Because Atriox is really powerful himself, but he actually hasn't done that much.
Right.
A big part of it is he's just talked about in ways that build him up to be bigger and stronger than he or the Banished actually were. And it's a really surprising thing at this point, because they are really powerful by the time Halo Infinite hits, so it's obviously worked.
Agreed.
One thing I was nice was I'm always a sucker for any kind of old references. So they only talk with Tartarus for like a couple of paragraphs, but I'm like, hey, I get that reference. I know this character. Wish they talk about it more in some of the other stuff. But some of the thoughts I had was, okay, first off, the way they did that Banish reveal with the Banshee was super weird. Did you guys notice that?
Near the beginning?
Near the very beginning, where in the first chapter, I think
the armor, the coating on the Banshee.
the symbol, right? But before they brought that up, they had already mentioned the Banished. Like, in the plane ride, they were like, oh, it could be the Banished. And I'm like, whoa, okay, we're already talking about them. They're not a mystery enemy, I guess. And then he goes to the Banshee, and he's like, it's the Banished. And the chapter ends, and I'm like, you guys knew they were here. Like, what?
Man, it's... Oh, I know, because my dog keeps whining. It's just, there are those little things where you can tell there are talking points or plot points he had to hit. Like, okay, I'm bridging between two games. I get to do a whole bunch of things I want, but I have specific things I have to hit.
Yeah.
So I almost wondered at that point, was like, I have to make it seem like by this point the Banished is unknown.
Yeah.
But also I forgot that I had already said that, and then I made it seem like the Banished being there is a big point.
That's what it felt like to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like he just forgot he had just mentioned them, which completely cut the legs out of the big reveal.
Right. Slight side note here in that I don't know if either of you have listened to the podcast 99% Invisible from Roman Mars. Fantastic podcast, fantastic podcaster. He worked with, I think, NPR for a number of years and whatnot. But anyway, it's just every week, every episode features some new random either design or architectural or engineering thing. And they just kind of had these random episodes recently where they did movie novelizations. And it was eye-opening because, if you've ever read a movie novelization, which I think I've read 2 or 3, because most of the time they're bad. And the reason they're so bad most of the time is because the authors they're not even given the script. They're not given, they're given kind of like broad strokes. And for example, if a script is changed after or during the book writing process, most of the time the author never even sees those changes. And so, I imagine it's different for 343, given how active, Kiki Wolfkill and a number of the media team at 343 is with these authors. But I just wonder if there's some semblance of that as well, where there are changes or there are, new additions that come after the book's already been written, that, once it comes out, you're like, okay, that feels like a retcon, but it's not really a retcon. It's just a mistake. And there were a number of points in this book that I just wonder if we're going to look back when Infinite comes out and we say, okay, that part doesn't make any sense because, like Eshram wasn't even on Reach or something, any number of things that we'll find. And so that's one of the things that, since I listened to that episode, I'm just like, damn. So it's made me view, because you can go back and read Balls of Reach, and then you look at obviously Bungie's retelling of the events with Halo Reach, and so much of it still, even referenced in this book, doesn't even match up with either of those.
Yeah.
So,
which is always kind of irritating for me.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have been that hard to just pick a different objective. Like, so frustrating.
That's what
Because it's one of the best books too. Like there's no reason to retcon certain things.
Well, Bungie did it with Halo Reach because, as far as they were concerned, they didn't give a damn about.
That was the problem. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
man.
the expanded universe being canon was a real 343 initiative in my memory.
It's just one of the reasons I will always, defend. They made some mistakes, but in terms of the plot, at least for the people like us who've read the books, there's elements in there. Whereas, you didn't even get the engineer race, for example, until Halo ODST.
Yep.
Whereas in the books, they were mentioned, I think, from the beginning. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I think Fall of Reach had engineers in there.
I know Harvest did. It was a big part of Harvest.
Yep.
Not just that, you also had, like, when I was playing the games, the Prophet race. What was their actual name again? I totally. I should know this.
They were really horny, handsome people.
Exactly. Before. They were a big part of the Foreigner trilogy. Well, either way, that race, when I was playing the games, I thought it was
Sang-Shayum.
Sang-Shayum, there we go. I thought it was just like their leaders. Like it was just like 4 or 5 of them. That's it. The truth, regret, whatnot. And then I watched the anime randomly, and I'm like, wait, did they just kill one? What the hell? Like that's how did this happen, right? And then it turns out, no, they're an entire race, and this is an entire race. Yeah, it's hard to.
I mean,
sorry.
I was gonna say, even with Master Chief in the beginning. I mean, I don't think Bungie even mentioned that there were other surviving Spartans until. I mean, I don't think they ever did in any of them.
No, they were always all in on he's the only one left.
Yeah,
like they were just addicted to that. Like, I don't know.
Admittedly, Chief assumed he was the only one left. He assumed his entire team died going down to Reach, and he assumed Linda was dead. Well, she was kind of dead.
Well, yeah, I mean...
and they didn't really care about that backstory.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what's the only Chief you see in Halo Reach the game is just an Easter egg of him in a cryobin.
Yeah.
Never a mention of him going around fighting up there.
Yep.
Like, I mean, they didn't keep any of it really.
The main one of the main plot points was last of his kind, right? I'm pretty sure that's in the back of the back of CE.
But then you had the Spartan 3. I mean, Ghost of Onyx was occurring during. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But they would never put any of it in the game.
Yeah, and it was so frustrating. Yeah, exactly.
And then 343 went too far for sure with Halo 4.
I think 4. I honestly thought 4's campaign was perfect. I think it would have been better had the. I see Jesse's head not there. I think it would have been better for people who didn't read the books had you not had to jump to another venue to see the actual terminal videos and whatnot.
Yes, that was kind of irritating.
5 would have.
That's fixed in the Master Chief Collection now.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
5 would have been great had they not had to make so many cuts, because there were so many great little like trails that they started building to something better, and then obviously just dropped it.
I mean,
you're not the only one here because of Chief.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one line, but it tells so much.
Yeah, Roland's whole tirade of like, are we just because somebody disagrees or somebody doesn't want to die, we're, that's bad, and obviously that just gets dropped. Obviously, those of us who have empathy and whatnot can understand why that's problematic. But despite that, the fact that we got Blue Team was such a huge deal for me.
Yeah.
4-5. I mean, even if the gameplay components of having a constant 4-people squad was problematic, just being able to see that 343 actually cared about the mythos was a win for me. And
people complained that who are these random characters in Halo 5? Dude, you don't need to know them. They're essentially new characters for you. That's okay. All the little snide references, not snide, that's the wrong word. All the little subtle references they had were subtle. Really subtle. Like when they played the Ollie Ollie Oxenfree, that was just an Easter egg for people who read the books, and it was really cool, right? It's like, oh, hey, we exist. This is awesome. For other people, it's just nothing, and it doesn't need to be something,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just because it's not a zero-sum game, just because somebody gets something out of it doesn't mean it detracts from somebody else.
I feel like people
one
look
of the
at
things.
Sorry, yeah, go on.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say I feel like people looked at the flaws of Halo 5 and just automatically assumed that they're flaws because they didn't get it, because they hadn't read the books. When that wasn't the case at all. In fact, I'd argue it's the opposite, where after reading it, you expect so much more, and they don't use it. You know?
Exactly. They like you said, they make those subtle references, and then they start building to something more, and then it just gets dropped.
Yep.
And it was a mix. They overcorrected because 4 had
100%
too much that you had to go outside to really get. Like, the majority of the motivation of the main antagonist wasn't in the game,
right?
Directly. You had to, if you read the book, you got so much backstory. You understood why.
And then if you watch the terminals,
you know.
Though Halo 4, I can't judge it too harshly because it was clearly meant to be the first in a series. You know what I mean? Even story-wise. So I get it if they wanted to, elaborate more in the subsequent games.
There's a lot to elaborate on.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too. Like that was the burden that 343 had was that they had to, for coming from Bungie, who didn't want to put. And I mean, hell, look at Destiny 1. You had to go to another damn application to look at any of the lore. I mean, that is one of the most asinine, lazy, just poor implementations.
What they had this whole thing that Joseph Staten, current head of the campaign in
Halo Infinite,
he's got a whole title now at 343. He had this whole big thing a year before launch. They said we don't like it. They gutted it, chopped it up, and people said, "Oh, there's so much mystery like Halo CE."
Yeah,
it's like no, there's much like Halo CE. There's mystery because they don't have any answers because they didn't actually finish this.
Mystery was just let's make that look.
We don't know how to define the darkness.
Oh God. Well, I mean, even like Halo
ice powers.
Yeah. Exactly.
But then Halo 5 made the mistake that Destiny 1 made, which was they just redid everything with not enough time.
Yeah.
And like they had the whole marketing campaign, was the Hunt the Truth. That was really good. I love that freaking podcast.
It was
nothing like that in Halo 5.
We should definitely do an episode on that at one point. The issue with probably my biggest issue with 343 isn't their multiplayer team, isn't their campaign team or their graphics. It's what feels to me like a divided vision. You know what I mean? Or not divided, fractured, splintered, whatever it is. It feels like they're not unified on what exactly they want from the franchise.
I remember, somebody said that they were set up in a way where they wanted varying opinions on where to go.
Ideas.
And I think it's hurt it a bit because in the end, there still needs to be one way you go. You plan for and you stick to, which is what Infinite finally seems to be.
Yes, which another reason why I'm so excited for this game. Oh man.
Bringing it back to the book, though.
Yes, I was about to say we went on like a 25-minute tangent there. Let's go back to the book. Anything else?
This will end up being all of them, where we go through the book and give our opinions on it, and then just lore.
There's too much.
I was going to say that the thing about the blue team, and the thing that I was a little bit disappointed with this book is that, you kind of get some of that droll, red sense of humor, but there's so much like Kelly and Linda are just, on International Women's Day while we're doing this podcast. They're such cardboard cutouts, like he was like, okay, she's a sniper, she's steely eyed, she's got this kind of like quote unquote English snark, I guess, and Kelly is just there. It's just they're so, I don't know, everybody looks at Spartans from outside and say, well, they're just supposed to be cardboard cutouts anyway. I'm like, yeah, but if you've read the books, they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially the first 3 books, where you get to see John, where you get to see Kelly, Linda, Sam, Fred in their, growth.
John, I get it. You can keep him more cardboard in a sense. You can keep him more stoic, right? It makes sense. But Kelly, Fred, they were never stoic characters ever,
right?
Even Linda had character, had personality. It was different socially. She wasn't as outgoing, obviously, as the others, but they were never this like blank canvas,
Right. Yeah,
you get that for the main character in games because it's meant to
exactly.
It's you. Yeah, like Gordon Freeman.
Yeah.
But once you're hitting a book, or especially with the later Halo games, you don't it hasn't been that, and having that for a side character was just not
So, man,
not my favorite.
It felt irritating seeing like the blue team, especially after how they were portrayed in Halo 5, which I actually really enjoyed. Like, if you see the contrast between the first mission in Halo 5 with Team Osiris and the second mission with Blue Team, the way they like interact with their mission, one goes guns blazing, literally sliding down a mountain. The other goes pure stealth tactics, just purely effective. That's it, right? And then with this book, right away, with all the dialogue in between the characters, it felt like I was seeing Team Osiris in a sense, not Blue Team. You know, like they weren't acting like grizzled veterans.
They weren't acting like people who've known each other for 20 plus years and been through hell and back.
Exactly. Like, what was the line in Fred had in Halo 5 where he's like, I've been with him for and I still have never seen him like this before, And outwardly, he's just doing missions, the chief. He's just literally going mission to mission. That's it. But his team, his family knows those signs, knows those
right.
calls, and he can call on them. In this book, I didn't get that feeling.
Yeah, too often it felt like things went poorly or they didn't do well for the plot.
Yeah,
in a way that didn't match the earlier books at all.
Yeah, I also put that in my notes too. Like, I can't remember a single book where they got their asses kicked so frequently, and so, like, to the point where even in previous books, even in previous games, the things that they suffered may have been death sentences, or at least would have taken them out of the field for several days, and they're like, okay, back on the field, 2 hours. Let me catch a nap. Like the whole the after Fred's helmet almost caves in on his skull, and he has, I think they found there was no brain bleed, but still, like the damage that was done was just ridiculous. That they're back up, and obviously, yes, they're augmented, they're super soldiers, but compared to some of the standards that they've set in the other books, it's.
They randomly just had a bunch of the old health packs from Halo CE on the ground and walked over them and didn't even realize.
Yeah, okay, the fact that you need to use them in Halo Reach is so frustrating, by the way. Terrible game design, all right? I'm just saying.
There are certain, always agree.
Yeah, there are some things that just that have outlived their stay.
Yeah, 100%.
Packs are definitely one of them.
Crap, what else did I want to mention about the book? Oh yeah, let's talk about the ending, the main thing.
Yes, I was going to say we need to talk about the Cryobins.
Yeah. So even before
the Cryo-MacGuffins.
Yeah. Even before we see the Cryobins, we get a bit of build-up. Actually, we get a fair bit of build-up, which is why I was really irritated we didn't see what's in them. Halsey's like, oh, he'll never forgive... Actually, this is probably not her exact words, but he'll never forgive me if he knows what's in them. Or... either way, she was really anxious. Okay, whatever the heck was in these things. It was clearly illegal. And illegal from back then, which I feel is even more.
Clones.
That's my thought as well. If not complete clones, at least
brain
brains.
clones.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm thinking it's because it was what, H2, H3, and H4. So to me that sounds like carbon copies of what they've already made of the brain of Cortana.
Yeah.
And wasn't there a fourth? Or am I misremembering? Because I could have sworn there were
3 Cryobins and 1 lockbox with the sword logo on it.
The lockbox, I made the joke several times on the You Had Me at Halo podcast, but I'm almost betting you guys that it's a fucking data restoration point for Cortana. That's just like.
Well, you remember was it the 2018 trailer, or was it the 2019 trailer?
2019, Discover Hope.
2019 has the end scene. Yeah, he's walking into the room, and there's the hidden audio of Cortana saying, "Oh,
that's me.
I'm alive."
Yeah, but it's not me.
How am I here?
Nice blue tint.
Yeah.
So I think this finding those Cryobins was probably you got to do this at the end of the book. That's what the book's about, because we need those Cryobins because we're going to remake Cortana on the ring.
Yep.
That's been my thought for a while, ever since that thing was either he found her or now with these Cryobins, he recreates her again.
Yep.
And her being her means that, it is some sort of possibly a backup that it is her instead of a brand new, different her.
I feel like
Right.
it can't be a backup. That's got to be like, that's breaking so many established rules
Well,
in Halo.
So there was something. There was a part in the ending where they were discussing how they, you know, the stretch and the quote unquote repair of Cortana from being in the domain. They were trying to do the reverse of that. So, I mean, what if the restoration point is simply kind of a Trojan of sorts, so that there's a exhibit A to go back into that and say, hey, let me grab this data, and then restores it from that, and then the bad code of Cortana is just left in the domain. I mean, that's kind of my thought on it, because they do talk about the reversal of that. I made some notes, but I forgot to get the actual bookmark of the page. But they talk about the reversal of that process.
That's interesting.
With an idea of what they're trying to do. So that's my thought. The restoration point is just a simplification of what it actually is, but it's really just a flash drive with the Windows
system
2555 restore point.
I feel like this is obviously going a little bit more on a tangent as well, more Halo Infinite related. I feel like the domain, which right now feels kind of corrupted, right? The domain itself. Is that the case? The impression we're getting? It's similar to how the Forerunner trilogy was, where the domain itself was corrupted.
Was it corrupted, or they lost access to it?
That's what I mean by corrupted, as in like it was no longer under their control. You know,
I don't think they ever had control. It was just more of this thing that they always had access to.
A big part of the
but they don't know where it came from.
A big part of the Forerunner trilogy, especially the first book, was how people can't access the domain anymore. They used to be able to access it without issue, and now it's like they've gone weeks without being able to access it, and they're like, "What's happening?" Right? Because the domain is obviously, and the Foreigners obviously have a way to prevent AIs from deteriorating, right? From what was it called?
Yeah, and their own bodies too. They could.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like eventually Infinite will have to end, or will have to reach a plot point where, because you can't have all the AIs be against humanity forever, right? That makes no sense.
No, I'm wondering if this becomes the juncture at which, the compromise is, okay, cool, you can live forever, so long as we can live in unity and in tandem with each other.
Exactly. That's what it feels like to me.
Or we'll destroy the domain, if that's even possible. One of the things I wanted to mention too is, I think at the end of this book, it's, when we were all watching the trailers, when everybody else was too, we were all kind of assuming that the Harbinger was Cortana. We were all assuming that Atriox and Cortana joined forces. But at the end of the book, I mean, Atriox flees from Reach to avoid an interaction with Cortana. I mean, that doesn't seem like the type of behavior of an ally, unless, of course, they change that after the fact. But again, I keep wondering if the Harbinger, kind of like what Jesse was saying, if the Harbinger is a Gravemind. And
it makes sense for why he was able to survive on the Ark with all the flood back out.
Yeah. So then the only question is, okay, then if that's the case, where are the Guardians at Zeta? So I don't know. It's or is Zeta outside of the purview of the domain and Cortana?
I just Googled Harbinger, the definition, because it's got to mean something. That's funny. There's two definitions.
Like the deacon.
Yeah. One is a person or thing that announces or signals the approach of another, which, The other one's also a forerunner of something. Those are the exact words they use.
Nice. Yeah, Harbinger and Deacon are interchangeable.
Yeah.
And so, grave minds are often foretellers of things to come, of change to come.
Yeah.
And you murdered a bunch of grave minds in the Halo Wars 2 DLC. A lot. They've had plenty of time to grow, and they are doing it.
Oh yeah, man, I gotta play this friggin' game, man.
When you kill sorry to break it. I'm sorry to spoil it, but the last mission,
I've already looked at this.
4 of them. I think you kill 4 grave minds in the last mission.
I gotta play this game.
It's fantastic.
What
and I think it's required at this point if you're going to be prepped for Infinite.
Yeah, if you want the lore. Halo Wars 2. And if you don't want to play an RTS, I would suggest doing it if you could get through it, because it's not too hard, and it's not super. The levels are actually pretty long sometimes, but it's very good. If you don't want to, then I'm sure there are plenty of YouTube videos out there where you.
I mean, I did look up the overarching storyline, but like, small things like this matter. You know what I mean? That you don't get when you just look up the story. Yeah, you should.
It may as well be called Halo Wars 2. That too.
What was I gonna say though? One thing that kind of confused me a little bit when I saw it, going back to the book, is why were there 3 Cryobins? I kind of figured there'd be just one clone brain. So when 3 showed up, I'm like, well, that's kind of weird.
Redundancy. That was my initial thought, but
like, what else could it be? Let's say, let's brainstorm a little bit. If it's not cloned, any kind of clone or a clone brain or something, what else could be in there that makes Halsey so afraid of what she's done?
it's her mother, father, and her older sister.
You don't
They
think
do mention God, what Kalwani was? I can't remember her name. The AI that was essentially Cortana's precursor.
Yeah, they mentioned that, but that was also, that felt to me like an Easter egg in a sense, where it's like, hey, remember this person?
Yeah.
Well, she's not actually alive. Never mind.
Yeah, she wasn't a smart AI.
Yeah. What I was gonna say, what if it's like a clone of John as a kid that Halsey like just couldn't let go, was somehow able to flash clone him again or something?
Yeah, but remember the human clones were never viable. They always
That's true, but they didn't always deteriorate. One of the episodes of Halo Legends was about a Spartan going home and seeing herself still alive, and she's like, "What?"
Oh, that's right.
That was a great episode, by the way. I think it was called Homecoming. That was a great episode. But I mean, how would that help them against Cortana? And be like, Cortana, here we have 2 chiefs. You take one. We'll take.
And plus, like they're holding. I didn't get the impression that they were that big.
Yes, you're right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she wasn't carrying them. They were being carried behind her. Weren't they? Some kind of lift thing.
Yeah, but like I would think, like a refrigeration unit, if it's gonna have anything big, it would be enormous.
Yeah.
So like,
and Spartans wouldn't be able to carry them individually from because remember, Halsey's lab was essentially caved in.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
so
right.
So you wouldn't be able to get large items through
because they didn't get the excavation equipment all the way down and bore all the way in and make a big
it was
hole.
just Kelly. Yeah. It was just or Linda and John. So
I guess you're right, and it has to be something organic, right? That we're agreed upon there.
Yeah, because if you need to keep it cold, you got to do that for a reason.
Yeah, it's not like it's a Pepsi or something. It'd be pretty funny.
It must be really well-made cryobins to still be cold after what, 7 years?
Well, yeah,
they were still powered, right?
Yep. Then the fusion reactor was still running somehow.
Future tech. You just say it's working and it works.
Yeah, it's such a MacGuffin. I mean, everything else in Castle Base was fucked, but except for her lab. So.
Phil Spencer on now.
Not with that attitude.
That was working and the portal was still there, thankfully.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they did have to make the huge hole and all that to get down.
Yeah, exactly.
The portal at least made sense because it was still Forerunner technology, which was built to last millions upon millions
for some reason.
Years. Yeah, right.
Sorry, Jesse, you muted.
Muted.
Oh, I muted to unmute. The future tech, you can do whatever you want in sci-fi with future tech.
Except for human tech.
I guess that's
ironic.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
I would say, ironically, that's the future tech that we're talking about is millions of years old versus the newest human tech.
I always loved the way Halo did humanity 500 years from now, because it didn't feel like this huge stretch. You know what I mean? They didn't have these plasma weapons or this weird other stuff. It felt like humanity of today in a reasonable future. You know?
Yeah, and I mean, if you've seen how slowly. How would I put this? How slowly legislation for improvements go, then it's very, very valid.
So the fact that
if we could ever get past the point of how do I make my money off of this in politics, then we could do pretty fast.
Oh yeah. Fair enough. Though I feel like
when things like, so if you guys if you don't know what ITER is, look it up. It's ITER. It's one of the projects that's worked on where I worked, and it's fusion reactor. The idea is a fusion reactor rather than fission.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this is what we always talk about in sci-fi. This is
Yeah.
a thing that could be a breakthrough in
The energy crisis.
energy production.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it's every year it's this battle. Oh, well, we don't want to donate, or we don't want to, excuse me, not donate. We don't want to fund this project because X, because Y, because Z.
Yep.
It's like, if we could get past that kind of stuff where public science and promotion of technologies actually is the status quo, then we'll get to the point where we can actually go to the stars. That's my science rant for the day.
Yeah. There's been too much human history, though, that I don't think it
yeah. It's kind of funny, though.
I've grown cynical as I've gotten older.
It's kind of funny when you read Halo books and they're forced to use like pop culture references from in-universe 500 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Like Kelly always listens to, what was it? She was listening to a track in this book where they're talking about how, like, something about turning your enemies to dust, and it was like, okay, that's either like Megadeth or it's one of 3 different tracks that they were clearly mentioning.
But any final thoughts on the book? Because it's been an hour already. Holy, wow, that went quick.
It is okay.
Yeah,
it's not offensively bad in any way. It's a little disappointing. I wonder how the other ones are in comparison to it, since they're probably not tied to bridging the gap between 2 games.
Yeah.
And I am interested in seeing what the next one is. If that's also going to feel like it got bogged down by being a pseudo prequel to Infinite. So
hopefully not. What would it taking place in the Ark? Oh wait, did you mean the next book with Spark, or did you mean
both? Really? Because I mean, supposedly some people, little blurbs that came out with Point of Light, the one that just released, where big things in the universe happen, and it's set close to this time, and then the next one is right after Shadows of Reach. Yeah. So that's still going to be just before Infinite. So they have to be tied into it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the art book is coming out still in June, according to them, which I bet you that gets pushed back again.
Yeah.
Because the art book's just going to spoil the crap out of anything that they don't show at digital E3. So,
like they did with the original Halo Encyclopedia coming out right before Reach.
I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's been that was 11 years ago now.
Yeah,
so,
God.
But I remember getting that one exactly. I got the first pressing of the encyclopedia, and it had all the stuff about Noble 6 and Reach.
Oh,
Jesse, what's the date on that one?
That's kind of funny.
So I'll have to get mine. I think it's in the
that
back,
looks really good. I kind of want that.
Oh, it's awesome.
For anyone listening to this, Jesse is only listening. I mean, he's showing off his Halo Encyclopedia, and it looks pretty amazing. I need a coffee table, I guess.
I'll find out what the date was for the original pressing, and then we can put that in the show notes.
Oh, hey, he's repping the shirt too.
Yes, rocking the shirt.
We won't sell that one because it's using their symbols.
Yeah,
but we have some
put it on camera.
Stores that are close.
It is a great shirt. Crap. I had a point. You were talking about
encyclopedia.
Before that.
I don't remember.
Yeah, neither do I. Oh well. Yeah, it's gone. That's never.
I looked it up. It came out on November 2nd, 2009.
Yeah, see, because 2010 was Reach.
Oh, that's kind of crazy. And it talked about Noble Team. What the heck? I was talking about art books.
Pretty sure. They had.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, Jesse.
I was talking about art books. I remember when the Titanfall 1's art book came out, and people were speculating, "Oh, are we gonna be able to go and fight this giant winged creature and this dinosaur?" And
Titanfall did a great job of setting up this kind of. We talk about the mystery, right?
Yeah.
Setting up the mystery of this universe and never really getting into it too much. Obviously, Titanfall 2 was damn near perfect in terms of campaign.
Still need to play. That's one that's been on my list. I know. It's been on my list forever. Okay. Every time I think, I'm like, I know it's good, so why don't I save it? It's kind of what I'm doing with the Gunslinger.
It's one of the best first-person shooter campaigns. I would argue probably ever. I mean, it's in my top 10.
I need to play this. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the ranks.
Oh, the rankings.
For those that aren't, who are just listening, Jesse just showed us the encyclopedia page of all the Halo ranks that you earn.
Daniel, any? Okay, all right. False alarm. Any final thoughts on the book?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jesse. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't bad, but when we've had Ghosts of Onyx, when we've had hell, even New Blood was arguably a better book than this one. That's the one that focused on our team of ODSTs from the ODST games.
Pretty infuriating book, though. Ugh.
In terms of what, rookie dying?
yeah. I mean, God. I mean, it was still a good book, though. It was great. It was done well.
Even that's not one of my favorites. It's just better than this one because at least it was a consistent tone throughout. It was clearly setting up setting up Bug to be a Spartan.
Yeah, and not just Bug. Other characters from the team also got pretty good setup off that book.
Yep.
Quick perusal, I didn't find any Reach stuff in the beginning, at least.
I could have sworn there was. Yeah, I'll have to look, but there was a little bit.
It's a big book, and I would have been doing it like the next 20 minutes if I wanted to go through everything.
In terms of my final thoughts, I'm not gonna judge Troy Denning off this book. This is the only book of his I've read, and honestly, there's too many. What's it called when you're tied down by something? Too many. Whatever that term is, man. When you're tied down by something, okay? Too many latches. I don't know.
Conditions.
Conditions. Yes, I guess. I meant more like the physical, something physically tying you down.
Red tape.
What? I'm pretty sure that's not physical. I don't know who's being held back by physical red tape. But he had such little room, I feel. You're dealing with established characters. You're clearly not allowed to reveal certain things. Right? There's no way it was his choice to say, "Yep, I'm the biggest reveal of the book. I can't do it." Like what?
Yeah.
And I feel like this book suffered from the opposite problem that people have with the extended universe of Halo, which is that because of all the complaints that I don't want to read the book itself suffered. Whereas I want to make a fun book, but I can't actually put meaningful stuff in it because I'm not allowed to. And that's kind of frustrating because when I read a Halo book, it's not just, I'm not reading it only for the connection to the Halo games. I'm reading it because I enjoy novels, right? Like we all do.
Right.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be reading this. We'd be summarizing it or Spark Notes or something. Yeah, so it felt to me, and this is going to sound, I guess, a little harsh. It felt to me like a Gears book. You guys know what I mean by that.
Yeah.
I've read all the Gears books before Gears 5 launched, and for the most part, the quality wasn't even close to Halo. Not even, the first book was really good. By the ending, I wanted to why am I still reading this?
Yeah.
So this to me felt like that quality of a book, where it's something I would never really recommend to people, which is kind of a shame.
Agreed. I mean, there's several that I think we all could point to in previous books that we would happily recommend and not have our reputations tarnished.
Yeah, and it's not just nostalgia. You'll say, hey, read Fall of Reach. It's a good book. And it's like, just because you read it 20 years ago. No, it still holds up.
Yeah. Contact Harvest was great.
Yeah, honestly, it was. Cold Protocol was still pretty decent.
Yeah. Yep. Full part. That one's fantastic.
Yeah.
It gives you a ton of backstory on the non-Spartan military.
Yeah.
So.
Halo Evolutions, I think, was the collection of short stories. There were some really good stories in there.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's ever really been a game series, and I'm probably wrong because I haven't read everything. But this one always felt like it just had more put into it. And it was always so disappointing that it never made it into the games.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping that this is where they marry it correctly. Because ignored it all the way through Reach, did it poorly in 4, where everything was good, but it was too segmented and necessary.
Yep.
Ignored everything again in 5, essentially, in the lead up, the marketing, the stuff around it, it was obviously very splintered, and then have been steadily building it again for Infinite, and I really hope they nail it.
Yeah,
Yep.
please.
Agreed.
But yeah, I think those are our thoughts in the book. We wanted to do this a little less structured, so we didn't really go like, this is the topic next, this is the topic next. It was more like, here's a general synopsis, and we'll talk about our thoughts as we go through. Also, I realized halfway through I didn't introduce myself, so I'm going to do it now. An hour in.
Who are you?
Soul Blazers is my name here. I'm also on the main podcast. I think we're good, right? Anyone have any final closing remarks in general for the first episode?
We are planning to do this monthly.
Yeah.
We'll always make sure you know what the next book is if you want to read along. Plan for now is we're going to start with the Forerunner trilogy. And that'll be an episode, all three.
Why are we starting with the Forerunner trilogy, do you think, Jesse?
Because to get to the books that are coming before Infinite, you literally need all the information that's in there to have an idea of why Guilty Spark is alive.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And
he's a big part of the book that just came out. He's in it.
Yeah.
He didn't actually die in Halo 3. So he almost died. But yeah. So the Forerunner trilogy, which, oh Christ, I didn't bother with the friggin' single titles I have.
Cryptum, Primordium, and Silentium.
There you go. Thank you.
They are, if you haven't read them and you're listening to this, they are dry reads. You might need to read some parts twice, but it's worth it. The payoff of Silentium, even without the payoff in the games, or the expected payoff you're going to get from the games, even without that, it's still worth it.
I'd agree.
And read them, then watch the terminal videos in Halo 4, and then play Halo 4 and realize Halo 4's campaign is great.
Also watch, that too, and definitely read up on the theory with the Didact. ISO Didact. I always mix them up. Oh my god. Also, another reason why I feel like they're pretty relevant is the second book in the series takes place, the entire book takes place on the ring that we're going to be on in Halo Infinite.
Zeta.
Or Zeta.
Zeta.
Yeah, so whenever this goes up, Zeta. Whenever this goes up, roughly a month, we'll probably let you know on the main podcast when we've got a date locked in.
Yeah. Also, if you have any feedback, actually, wait, Daniel, any thoughts closing on the episode?
I'm good.
If you have any feedback on our structure, on the video, if some of us are the lighting's not good, I don't know, anything. On topics
this
you want us to
room will
cover?
not always look like it does.
Yeah. Which is like one of those.
I just moved, so I have an excuse. That's just creepy.
It looks like one of those weird cameras they had in the recent UFC match. Man, I need to get me one of those. Anyways, God, how am I tangenting in the conclusion? If you enjoyed our content, like usual, like usual isn't what I'm about to say. Not like usually enjoying the content, though. Admittingly, if you're an hour and 13 minutes in, you probably enjoy our content. If you enjoy our content, please like, comment, subscribe.
Subscribe.
And if you really enjoy our content, we have a Patreon. Every little bit helps. We have a forum as well. And if you have any questions with us, you want us to discuss anything, if you don't like the fact that we tangent, if you want it to be more structured, if you prefer the open structure of it, please let us know. At all. Literally any kind of feedback.
If you don't like one of our voices, we can do other voices.
Oh, 100%.
And we're always going to tangent.
Yeah.
No matter what you say. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Proud, that book you've been writing?
So we'll take your feedback, and like most places, we'll probably ignore a lot of it.
Halo Infinite and PS5, right? Discuss.
Boy,
I heard it was going free to play, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you do it? You're giving away money. Also, why not just put everything on get it on Switch, get it on the 3DS? Why not?
One thing for sure, and I'm gonna timestamp this, is let us know how the audio quality is, because we switched over to a different program this time, and I personally feel like it has better crosstalk than the other one does. Let us know. Is it better? Is it worse? Please let us know.
I think there's less latency.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for watching, guys.
Cheers.